It is bugged out. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Just closed. You know, sometimes that happens when I go to this map, but um, just want to spin it around one more time. No, the reason I wanted to show you this is because there's a lot of powers over here. As you can see, there's multiple mosques. Islam is a big part of this area. Even the Catholics are a big part of this area. You can see there's some Catholic churches around here that you call the Church of Mary Magdalene. You can see different style of churches. They have a tomb called the Virgin, the Tomb of the Virgin. There it is, Tomb of the Virgin. And a lot of control over this area, a lot of power, spiritual power being taken in this area. This here is the Gihon Spring over down here. That Gihon Spring is connected with the real Jerusalem. If you just find that, you can find the real Jerusalem. And you can see, this is it. Where is it? In the city of David. This is where the city of David begins. Right here. It's a certain amount of feet away from the Roman fort, which it was described by Josephus. It was a little bit, so the Roman fort was basically, I'm going to show you if I can. I'll show you on this site because it's pretty interesting when you see it. I'll let that if you'll load. I'll just go to what the there it is. So sometimes if you look at Fort Antonio, you may see this thing right here on a little corner on Jerusalem. I actually Don't know what corner is at. It's actually a pretty interesting thing to see, to find out what corner is actually at. But it's very tiny, and it makes no sense for the Roman, because this, we're not talking about modern day armies where they rule by technology. We're talking about armies that ruled by power. Let me see if I can find it. Where would that little fort be? See, it's so tiny. It's like it's smaller than this moss, which, if you know the dimensions of this, is about the size of a football field diamond. It's very tiny. It makes no sense for the Romans to have taken place there because if you know, ancient armies ruled by power, especially Rome. They wasn't called Iron Rome for no reason. They ruled by size and stature. Maybe it's this. To be honest with you, it looks like this, but maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Let's see if it looks like it. No. No, it's like some entrance. I have to look where it's at. I know this was right directly in front of this thing. I'll probably look later because I want to get out one day. I'll get the exact locations for the Exodus and all these different things. But as for that little part, as you see, I don't know where it's at on here, but it's so tiny. It's so tiny. And I'm looking at the map or looking at this. It's somewhere on the corner or somewhere on it. That's what they say. And it's very tiny. It's more smaller than the temple, which would have been very small, very small. As you can see, I've been about the size of the temple. And that's the size in comparison. This is actually the design, what it would have been like. This is the city of David right here. And this would have been Rome. So they would have said that Rome would have built a thing more smaller than the temple to be on the side, which the temple was very tiny. It wasn't a big thing. It was just a thing for, and it was supposed to be small because only the high priest was supposed to go in. It would be a rotation from that. Only the high priest can enter into the Holy of Holies. But it's important to know because the real location is in the city of David. Get rid of that. Right here. This is Jerusalem. Right here. That's it. Put it in 3D. So let me just turn it. It was made like a plowed field. And they were set on the side. The reason why they were on the side is so they would be humble. See how it's like on a slope? Kind of like a slope area. You can kind of see that dip. It goes down a little bit and it goes a little higher and higher. Because they didn't yet get to the exalted point because they kept doing what they were doing. They kept on doing what they're doing. And that's why Rome was able to build their fort on the top. They just seen a little open area, high ground. They took the high ground and they set themselves on the top. And then Jerusalem was just built in the city of David where it was. That's why there's a excavation. There's a recent excavation where they say that Jerusalem extends to the Temple Mount up here, which the excavation is that they're excavating this land bridge. I think it's called a cohort or something like that. This is it right here. This is what they're excavating. Exactly what Josephus said, this little bridge right here. Because it leads up to the western wall, because they're worshiping the wall, and it would be quite embarrassing if they were worshiping the wall of the Roman fort. They say, "Oh, for 100 years now, they've been worshiping a wall." That's what they would have said. Yet the design is clear that the Romans would not use this little um, appendage to the temple. And what I mean by the size of it, you could just go type down a baseball diamond. It's about the size of a baseball diamond, not the field. The diamond, this right here, the square, about that, or even this part. Maybe not that part, but the little diamond right here, this part right here, that part. That's about the size of the temple. So you could just imagine how small it would be, and then say that, oh, the Romans just built a little thing right here. So that's about the size of it. So just look at that. Even look at the person. Look how small. Look how big the person is to the whole temple. There's a person, and then they say, oh, Rome just had a little thing, like just right here, because that's how big the temple was. It was not that big, and the dimensions is well known. It's mentioned by Solomon, and then they basically followed the same design when they built it. And in fact, they built it smaller. If you remember in the book of Ezra, when they finished the foundation, they wept. The ones who've seen the house before weep. So Solomon's temple was small, the foundation, because it was a certain dimension. And then the second temple had to be smaller. Obviously, Herod had extended it when he made it grow, but the center area of the temple would have been right where it was. So with that, family, it's a short live, but I just wanted to address that, talk about where the location is, and talk about those things because it's important. It's important to know. But let me actually I want to go over one more thing before I end this because I have to leave no matter what at like 9:30. But let me grab a charger here. Before it's too late. Because I want to address another thing. I don't know if it bugged out and I can't see your messages. So I don't see your messages at all. As you can imagine, I don't see anything. But I want to show you because this is important to know. Because this is gonna play a big. It's gonna play out in the future. This location, because those who don't know about it may fall into what it talks about. You know how it says, it may fool even the elect of what's gonna happen, because there's so much madness going on that it's important to know the truth. And if you've seen the video of Revelation, I talk about this, where the location of Jerusalem is. And you can go also, I don't know if you can see my playlist, but you can educate yourself on it. You can go to my playlist and you can see where it says True Jerusalem. And I say 34 videos, but it'll just give you some education on different things on the area from different sources, different areas. And even as an evidence, they found a Roman auditorium, basically a theater in the Temple Mount. They found the theater. So what was a Roman theater doing in so-called Jerusalem? You know, that's the only thing they found in that area is the Roman theater. But there's a bunch of different finds, like this one that talks about the location. And it's important to know these different things. And then this one just about the 1,000-year reign. And a lot of these are important to know for location in different areas. So, Rome wouldn't put a little, just imagine, it would have been so small. It would have been about not even this size, like the size of the top of here. And it's so small you can't even see it. And this is small. This is really small. And just looking, you can barely find it. And I'm just looking for where is that. I actually want to know where is that, to be honest with you, because it's so tiny. Maybe you can find it. And we already in one of the videos we talked about how Ezra had they built the foundation. You could look in Ezra when they laid the foundation, that was weeping and that was laughing. I just want to show you real fast. Actually, let me do one thing at a time. Let me type this down because I want to see if there's a sky view of it. Because if I can see a sky view of it, I can find a location. So that's about the size of that. Let's see if I can find it in Ezra. I believe I can because I think it's probably like the second chapter, or not the second or third or fourth. Because that's the rebuilding of the second temple. Ezra, maybe 4, maybe. Maybe it's after that. It's at the bottom of it. The feast and unleavened bread, 7 days. Oh, it's probably later on then. No, must be earlier. There it is. So see right here, they built the foundation. I want you to hear what's said here when they built the foundation. You can see, and when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the foundation is just how big it's going to be or where the location of the temple would be. So when they laid it down, they set the priests in their apparel. So they all got ready, when they laid it down. And right here, they praised the people, like the youngins, they praised, they were happy. They praised when the foundation was laid. But many of the priests and Levites and chief of the fathers who were ancient men, meaning they were old, because they went to captivity for 70 years. So they lived a long time. They probably was like 20 when they went into captivity, 20, 30. So they was really old. And it says, that has seen the first house, they seen the first house, first temple, when the foundation of this house was laid before their eyes, wept with a loud voice. So they cried because they first seen the destruction of their temple, and they seen this temple that was laid down again, and most likely it was a little lesser than what it was before, because the temple that Solomon laid was of perfect dimensions, and it took a big team for him to do what he did, and a lot of things that he did to make it happen. And right here, they were struggling to put this one up because the other people around them was making them struggle to put it around. It says, and many shouted with joy. So the people could not discern the noise of the joy from the noise of the weeping of the people. For the people shouted with a loud voice, a loud shout, and the noise was heard far off. So I'm going to see if I can find a sky view. You can see my charger's broken. I don't see a picture of the sky view of the temple. Maybe there's a layout of it. I'll probably have to look later, but you can see it's so tiny, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. Just pull this out. But I have a really interesting picture of the layout of what they believe to be the temple, and maybe I can find that real fast and show you, because I think it's really interesting. Let's see if I can find that. If I can. I don't know if I passed it. This one's one too. This is just a different thing. It just talks about the dimensions of it. As you can see, if you know what cubit is, it's from your fingertip to your elbow. So it's 40 cubits, I mean 20 cubits, 20 by 20. That's the actual Holy of Holies. And then the stretch out of the holy place is an extra 40 cubits. And then you have, the porch. So about 60 cubits, 60 by 60 cubits. And then obviously we have like extended areas around. So sometimes it'd be about 60 by 60. Or you could just say 60 cubits, one direction. And then about, with the extra cubits on the side of these little areas right here, which I actually don't, 5 cubits, so extra, so about 30 cubits. So 60 by 30 cubits. See if I can find, I got this one picture that they pretty much, they take the area of the temple and they lay it where they think the temple is. And I'll see if I can find it, because it's a real interesting one. If I can. But this is a layout of where it will be. You can see this is will be the Roman fort. This is the wall they worship. They call it the Temple Mount. This is the city of David. This is where the temple would have been, right about here. As you can see the dimensions of this. That would be close to it, but this is just something they put down for the mosques. They know that this is all new. But it was right here. But as you can see, Yeshua said, not one stone on top of another. They just built houses on here, but it was plowed like a field. These houses are actually recent. These houses are really recent. At first, it was a plowed field. You should see there's an older picture of how it was like nothing. See, you can see a little earlier. You see it looks very plowed. But they have little houses on there. I wish my charger wasn't broken. I should have got a new one. But this is a cubit right here, about 18 inches. And here it is. So you can see where they think the temple would be. That's what they think. But see how it stretches out? Because that's how the temple will go. But for that location, no. Doesn't work for that location. You see, this is where the temple would be, right here. And it works too, because the bridge that they found is this bridge. And that's what it was described being, a double arch. And then some stairs in front. This was Fort Antonia. This is the Wailing Wall that they cry to. It's a shame, because they're going to find out that they've been crying not to the Messiah, but they've been crying to a fort, on the wall of a fort, Fort Antonia. And maybe I'll throw all these on a note one day, so that some people, these are valuable things for, and it's important to learn about. Maybe I'll put this on there too, about measurements, like a span, a reed long reed, a cubit, different measurements, even like the water measurements. It'll go a long way if you're reading certain things, to understand the measurements and different things. A span, a finger breadth right there, very small. And you can see those different things. And yes, I just thought to share that because these things are important. The location, different information like that. Because as we know, we're getting closer and closer to what they say is the time and a half. And what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and how it's going to go. I don't know exactly how it's going to go, but we know what time to look out for. It's 2023. We got to keep our eyes on the time. And these are lands of interest. These, as we said before, this is Babylon. This is it. This is a clear picture of this area. I wonder if I can find Fort Antonia. It's so small. You can just imagine, since you can't just see it, because this is small. This is really small. As you've seen with the temple, it's very small. It's not really a big area. And what I mean by small is that you're gonna have a Roman army in this area, an army. So you can just imagine, they would have needed all this area for their army. They weren't a small army. They weren't called Iron Rome for no reason. To just be a little appendage. They always when they built forts, it was always this dimension. It was a rectangle like that. And you can watch the video on my page about the Roman forts, the size. But I can't find a location right then and there, but it's somewhere. It's somewhere. It's so small. It's like that. It looks big from this area, but it's so small. It's so small. I can't find it, but I'll look for it one day and we'll know a few locations to look out for. But this is what a Roman fort looks like this. This is a classic Roman fort. This is the dimensions. This is how they usually built their forts. Every time, in multiple locations, they have evidence of their forts being that size. It's a proven fact. So it's no mistake that one area on the Temple Mount is shaped like a Roman fort. And like I've said before, why is it Babylon? Because what's the thing about Babylon? What's the thing about Babylon? Babylon is the area where you see where it's mentioned about the beast, where the name sits on top of that area. Because remember, Babylon's called Mystery Babylon. The mystery is that the word is Jerusalem. The word Jerusalem sits on top of this area, which is two combinations of things. It's the Roman Fort Antonia, and it's also that Dome of the Rock. It's that Dome of the Rock that is causing great error. So it's very, very small, this area. This is very small, but it means a lot to the world. And the people who don't trust people who don't believe in God. They believe in God and they tell you it's not that area, or if someone doesn't really understand the level of meaning to this area, they won't understand that this area has big significance. This little area has big significance to the whole world. As the scripture says, the world is as a drop in a bucket. And Jerusalem was very important. And don't get me wrong, it's not just about the area, it's about the people. But this area is still important because this was like the heart of the promised land. The heart of the promised land. And so this thing right here, that seems very large, but you can see the people and compare that to this. Wouldn't be much room for an army. Wouldn't be a lot of room for army. Be pretty cramped. Be a pretty cramped area for an army. And supposedly the Roman fort was smaller than this. But look at that. You see the people. It's not a clear picture, but you can see the people in this area. And you can just imagine trying to put an army in there. And supposedly the Roman fort is smaller than this. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't imagine that working out. So it's just something to be wise on, to see visually that this is Jerusalem, the city of David. The city of David is Jerusalem. And it's important to know because remember in Revelation, they go and measure the temple and they say, leave out the outer court. Well, for that part will be trampled by the Gentiles. So you'll wonder, what does he mean by the outer court? You know, because if you know about the New Jerusalem, is actually going to be designed, not the New Jerusalem, my bad, the new tabernacle. The new tabernacle is going to be designed like a square. And the outer court is actually all around. The outer court is all around. So think about that. The outer court is all around. And what do I mean by that? I don't know if I have a good picture of it. So maybe I can find it real fast. Just want to show you this last thing. What the new, it's called Ezekiel's temple. That's what they call the 1,000-year reign temple. They call it Ezekiel's temple. And you see how it's all around? The outer court is all around it. So think about that. If it says leave out the outer court, yet the outer court's all around. You can see that's the design of Ezekiel's temple. Right there. It's a new temple design that's gonna be implemented one day. I think there's everyone has their own different style to it, but one of the things about it is that it's supposed to be on a hill as well. It's supposed to be like this. That's how it's described in the Bible. It's described as being on a hill. It said, it says, they say, let us go up to the hill in Zion, because it says the law shall go forth out of Zion. It says, let us go up to the hill in Zion and seek after the Lord. And notice how he says, leave out the outer court. Leave out the outer court. Why? Why does it say, oh, that's a nice picture. It says, why does it say leave out the outer court? Because it's all around. It's all around. And it's a real interesting thing. I don't know. 20 reads to look into that image. But it's all around as you, and it's important to know, because what does it mean that it's all around? That means that that area is going to be surrounded. Jerusalem's going to be surrounded. It's going to be surrounded all around. That's why it says leave out the outer court. In fact, you know, the temple is really large. So it's very large. You can see this thing trying to show where it would land. The dimensions of it is huge. It's very big. This new thing. You can see here. I was talking about it, where it would be, whatnot. But it's gonna be very interesting to see where it's gonna be located, and it's a very large temple. Very large. So that's gonna be the 1,000-year reign, the 1,000-year reign temple, and who's gonna be there at this temple? All the patriarchs, all the major men, all of them. And the people are going to be given their promise, and obviously it's going to be much larger than that, what they think it is. Some people think this is just a promised land, but remember what I showed you, what the promised land is. It's massive. As you can see, the temple's massive. See how massive that is? So when you see this, it's going to be huge. It's going to be humongous. It's going to be a great temple that the world is going to see, and they'll be like, wow, that's amazing. It's going to be built during the time of Yeshua. This temple. It's going to be humongous. It's going to be a very, very large temple. It's going to be amazing. And it talks about in Ezekiel, it talks about the dimensions. If you ever get a chance, just look it up. Ezekiel's temple. You can probably find different videos on it. And, you know, you never know what you'll learn. You might learn something interesting about it. I don't know what they're supposed to be, but height of pillar in Ezekiel's temple. It's a pretty big pillar. But yes, it's really big. It's a really big temple, and the altar is very interesting too. The way that the altar is, this is a good image of it. It's layered. It's multiple layered. The altar it has different layers. It's really interesting what's going to happen. Here's the idea of the altar. It has multiple layers. I don't know if they'll move different parts of the altar and there'll be different levels of sacrifices because there's going to be sacrifices again and there's going to be different things. And the reason why we know this is a real thing is because the way it's described is so detailed to the point where it's worth looking into because it's not just something that's just thrown on there. It's very detailed. And every time someone designs it, is because the information of how it's designed and how it's level and measured and everything is all in the scripture. As it was with Solomon, he measured out how his temple was built, and this was actually measured out. All of this. So remember how I said the measurements, the reeds, and all those different things is all there. It's all in the Bible. It talks about the horns on it. As you can see, 4 corner horns on the altar. It's a very interesting thing. You know, I find it interesting how it's layered like that. It has different layers, and it's huge. It's a huge temple, and the way that it's described in Revelation, it says, you know, leave out the outer court. So most likely, you know, because you know, there's a center area, which is the major court, which is about, you know, still the same. Well, probably maybe a little bigger area for the Holy of Holies. Actually, I gotta look up where how it says the Holy of Holies is actually what size it is because it may be bigger, it may be smaller because this is gonna be built later by the Messiah during a 1,000-year reign. It says that he will build it. That's what it says in the scripture. It says he will build it, and the people, they will also help. So it's gonna be an amazing thing that's gonna happen. So he's gonna gather the people, bring them to their land, and he's going to set his land there, and then it's going to be called the Lord is there, or the Lord our righteousness. That's what it's going to be called, the temple. I don't know how you say that in Hebrew, the Lord is our righteousness, or the Lord is there. But it will be a really interesting thing, and that's going to be in the 1,000-year reign. I'll probably look up how big the Holy Holy is one day. But there's going to be a way when the time comes that the Lord, Yeshua, is going to enter it. Yeshua is going to enter the temple, and that door is going to be shut. When he enters into the temple, that area is going to be shut. And when he enters it, that way that he enters shut, but the south gate and the north gate is going to be open. But probably the front gate where he enters is going to be shut. And guess what? Because you know Yeshua, we're going to be in the face of Yeshua. We're going to see him. But the Father, we won't yet see him face to face. That's why it says in 2 days he will revive us, and the third day we'll see his face. So we'll live in his sight. Because at this gate, Yeshua is going to sit when this gate opens and eat in the middle of this gate with God. The gate's gonna open, and Ezekiel says it's written that the prince, he's gonna sit in the gate. The only person who can go through the gate and open the gate is Yeshua. And I don't know about this. There's not gonna be no tree of life. The tree of life is gonna be on Jerusalem. I don't know about the tree of life being in all this because it's not described in Ezekiel. Sometimes people say that, oh, the tree of life is gonna be there. It never says that. It says the tree of life will be in New Jerusalem. And that's in the new earth. Because if you eat that, you'll live forever, pretty much. But that's going to be, see this water though, this water of life, the water of life will come out of there, out of the temple, out of the Holy of Holies. The water of life is going to flow out and it's going to bring life. It's going to be amazing. It says that it's going to make fishes. It's going to go all the way to the Dead Sea, bring the Dead Sea back to life. It's going to be amazing. And yes, this is what's gonna happen. This is about to happen in a little bit. So definitely, if you're interested in learning more about the temple, read Ezekiel 40 into the end. Ezekiel 40 into the end. And also see the different videos on Ezekiel's temple. Usually they're gonna be on point with it. I haven't seen one that's too far fetched, but usually, and if you get questions, this is what we on prophecy and the time to come. And this is, I know it may not look like, but this is huge. This thing is gonna be really, really massive. Like, I don't think there's a building that's as big as, the only thing I can relate it to is maybe CERN, how big CERN is. But it's going to be huge, this thing. It's going to be big, very big, probably bigger than CERN. It's going to be a very big, because they say CERN is the biggest structure that they have, but it's just a round circle. But this thing is a whole piece, a whole piece. It's going to be for 1,000 years and then forever. This thing right here is just a tabernacle. This is going to be just for the 1,000 years. That's why it's a tabernacle, because they're going to keep the Feast of Tabernacles here. And then when the time comes, everything's going to pass away. We leave this and go to the amazing New Jerusalem, which would descend down from heaven. And then we're going to be in the face of God. But before that even happens is the white throne judgment. So this, a lot of people are actually going to be here because all you have to do is not worship the beast. That's it. If you don't worship the beast, you're gonna make it. If you don't worship the beast, you're gonna make it, because it's this place is for refinement. That's why Yeshua is the salvation. He's the mercy that we've been waiting for the grace we're under, because he's gonna teach us. It says, let's go up there and learn the law on Zion. But if you worship the beast, it's over. If you continue and die in the worship of the beast, it's over. But if you don't, whether you go to hard stuff and you die by the hands of the beast or whatever, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. It's going to be amazing. But this is it. This is the sanctuary. This is the temple. Let me say this because it's actually, I keep looking at it, but this just throwing me off, the tree of life, because it doesn't say anything like that. But this is it. This is what it's going to be. This is the New Jerusalem. And you can see, I think that's probably, I don't know if that's supposed to be the other temple. I don't know. Is that supposed to be the other temple? Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on there. But that's it. That's what's gonna happen. You can see it's gonna be amazing when it occurs. And it's supposed to represent the body of Christ, because it's supposed to be, I don't know how it's laid out, but it's supposed to be the arms, and the stomach, which is the altar. The altar supposed to be represent his stomach, and then the Holy of Holies is his heart. If I could find a better picture of the temple, it'd probably look more clear. I have to look for that one. It's supposed to be something like that, but maybe there's a clearer one. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I have to look a little bit, but it's supposed to represent that. That's what it's supposed to represent. The body. It's supposed to represent the body. But yes, this is a really interesting thing to look more into, and to stay wise on the truth on location. So with that, brethren, be blessed. Be